Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us to the Friday SLL Talk. My name is Yare Kiano. I'm the Student Learning Outcomes Coordinator from Santa Ana College. And this morning, we have a pleasure to host Dr. Christine Harrington, Associate Professor and Co-Coordinator of a newly established EDD in Community College Leadership Program at New Jersey City University. Dr. Harrington, the floor is yours. Good morning.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm so glad to see so many of you here. I will share my screen in a moment and get into the formal part of the presentation. But before I do that, I'll share some of my background with you. I've been in higher ed for over 20 years, predominantly in the community college sector. I worked at Middlesex County College, which is in central New Jersey. And I worked first on the student services side of the house, wearing the disability service provider hat. I served as a counselor. My PhD is in counseling psychology. And then I shifted over to the academic side of the house after about 7 years of full-time work in student services. And I then taught psychology, our first year seminar, our student success course. That's an area of passion of mine. I have some books and whatnot in that space as well. Really love that role. Jumped in to become the Teaching and Learning Center Director. We call it CELT at our institution, Center for the Enrichment of Learning and Teaching. Loved that role because then I got to not just help students be the best that they could be, but also help faculty be the best they could be in the classroom. Phenomenal experience. And that's when I really got involved and engaged in, like the scholarship of teaching and learning and really looking at what we need in order to support students. Really loved that experience as well. I had this really unique experience at the state level. So I got to serve as the executive director of our Center for Student Success. And I know you have a center in California also. So I was the person in charge of our New Jersey work for 2 years. We were working off of a rotating basis. So I served my 2-year term, loved it, got to be part of the national conversation on guided pathways. And, one of the things and one of the books that I wrote is Ensuring Learning and also engaging faculty in guided pathways. So when I was a part of those national dialogues and I'm sitting down next to the Davis Jenkins of the world and all these other folks that I had only read about, I'm like, oh my God, I'm at the table with these people, and it was really amazing. And one of the roles that I had that most people at these conversations did not ever have before was faculty. In fact, we were at a lot of national conventions and convenings, and they would ask, so who's a college president, who's a senior admin, who's in this role, who's in that role. And then they would ask for faculty. And you'd maybe get, a handful was often a lot at these conferences or convenings. So the faculty voice I felt like was really missing. And I felt like it was an obligation if I was a faculty member at the table to represent the faculty. So every chance I got, I started talking about ensuring learning. I'm like, why is this the fourth pillar? I'm like, why is it number 4? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, we have to, and actually in New Jersey, don't tell all the creators of the pillars. Actually, they know I did tell them, but I moved it and I changed it. I said, I'm not letting learning being the last thing that we should be thinking about. That is what our business is. We're all about ensuring learning. So we need to have that front and center of all that we do. And yes, we need all the other pillars. They're all really important. And my FYE, hat, certainly going to talk about helping students choose a pathway, right? There's going to be a lot of other really important elements, and they're all equally important. It's not a hierarchical model, but when you put it last, it just feels like it's not quite as important. And I want you all to know that I am so passionate about it. And I was, really trying to push push as much as I could at all of the meetings to try to get this conversation. And I'm thrilled, really thrilled to hear so much more on ensuring learning. I was thrilled that a publisher wanted to let me write a book on ensuring learning and engaging faculty in guided pathways. That's great. And now you see a lot more of it. There's always room for improvement. All of us can, acknowledge that, but there's a lot more really positive conversation. So today, my plan for us is I want to talk to you about engaging students. So that'll be kind of the focus. And the reason why I'm so passionate about it is because the other voice at the table besides faculty, and obviously we know from an equity lens, we also are missing faculty of color, administration, administrative leaders of color. first of all, they're fairly non-existent. We don't have enough of them. And when we do, they're not always invited to be part of the conversation. So there's a lot of voices missing, but another voice that's often missing is the student voice. So one of the reasons that I loved this project, so, I remember I just told you, I went to the state level for 2 years. I was very fortunate because my college kind of held my tenured full professor position for me. So they they loaned me to the state, and then I came back. So I came back to campus. I fell right back into my teaching and learning center director hat because the person who filled in for me was very happy to hand it back over. She was ready to retire. She's like, you can have it back. I'm like, okay, I love it. So I get back to Middlesex and I'm there for just a few minutes. And you know how networking and different things work. I wasn't job hunting, and someone came and did the whole tap on the shoulder and said, Christine, you'd be great for this position. They're starting a new EDD and community college leadership program. And at first I was like, no, I'm not a leader. I'm like a faculty member. I'm like one of the people. I'm not like, I don't go on the second or third floor of the buildings. I'm on the first floor of the buildings, right? That's where my office is. And, the person is like, are you nuts? Like, do you know what you just did the last couple of years? And look at your roles. Like, it may not be a positional title of dean or VP, but you're moving and shaking things. You've got a lot of leadership. So I was really, just so honored to have like someone, because A, I didn't know the position existed. And B, if I did, I didn't think I was qualified, quite honestly. And I know, you've seen a lot of the LinkedIn and Inside Higher Ed articles on this. Females are less likely to apply for positions if they don't think they meet all the qualifications. I certainly would never have applied if I was not pushed and encouraged to do so. So anyway, long story short, the reason why I'm getting to this is because obviously I got that position. I'm in that position. I love it. And if anyone wants to talk to me about the program, please feel free. I would love for you to chat with me. We are looking for partners. We obviously always invite new cohorts of students in every year, but if you already have your doctorate or you're not interested in getting a doctorate, we also are looking for partners in terms of mentors. We have an experiential learning component. We are also looking for sites to have, to house the doctoral interns to do that work. It's all virtual. The entire program's online. Dissertation committees. There's so much room for partnership. So if you want to chat with me more about that, please follow up with me via email. I'll be sure to put my email into the chat later. I'm telling a really long story, but here's why it's kind of the why behind what we're talking about today. So I put all these events on at Middlesex, and I'm getting ready to put on my last event before I'm heading off to NJCU. And I'm kind of emotional because I spent almost 20 years of my life at Middlesex, and I'm really feeling a little emotional. And I'm so glad because we came up with the best final event for my, my career at Middlesex. I know that they went on and had more. The event really was a student panel. It was a student panel where students were just sharing what worked and what faculty did that really made a difference for them. It was so inspiring. It was so amazing. After any presentation, this is the part I miss about Zoom. People would come up and talk to you, you'd have like some of that after kind of conversation. Anytime there's any presenter I would bring to campus, there would always be faculty conversation afterwards. But this time it was a line out the door. Like faculty were waiting like an hour, literally an hour, to go and talk to these students because they wanted more. And I left thinking, their voices matter so much. And there's really not enough of a platform for those student voices. And then I thought, when I switched positions, I lost my tenure and my rank and all that stuff. Cause sometimes you just got to make a leap. I chose, more excitement and something new and different over a comfortable and, tenure and full professor. So I'm, not tenured yet. I'll get tenured again, but I'm thinking I got to write a book and what better book to write? Actually, so that's when I start at the same time, I had the same idea. I'm like, we need to get faculty involved. So it's actually when I took that position is when I decided to write the Ensuring Learning, Engaging Faculty and Guided Pathways, and the Keeping Us Engaged. I didn't know they'd all say yes, the publisher. So then I'm like, oh my God, now I have to write all these books. But Keeping Us Engaged was really, I love the other books too, and they're really powerful. And I hope that you find them useful. But my favorite project was working with the students. So I didn't know whether I'd get student contributors or not. And I was so lucky that I leaned on my network. I'm going to say professional network and personal network because I happen to be a mom of college kids. So I did lean on some of my, one of my sons cooperated, the other wasn't willing. So I got one of them to put a voice in there. And actually I got a lot, way more out of my professional network than I did my personal one. But I was really amazed. I was so fortunate to get 50 student contributors who shared stories about what faculty did to engage them. Now, I know you are not all necessarily in a faculty role, but I think the stories and the information that we're going to hear from students today is going to be so powerful and certainly transfers to basically all that we do. So live with the examples a little bit and understand that you can definitely transfer that information into different spaces. So again, one of my favorite projects ever. I love it, and I'm ready to get started if you are. So I am going to share my screen, and I'm going to remember to click the share sound button so we can hear some of their voices directly. Oh, would it be helpful if I had, instead of that messy thing, I put this up. Okay, here we go. Okay, and I just want to bring up the chat so I can kind of keep that. If you do have questions or anything along the way, feel free to jump them in the chat. I am fairly good at monitoring that, but now I probably just jinxed myself. So if I do miss you or something, especially when it gets a little chatty, please don't feel like I have purposely ignored you. It's just a little tough sometimes to manage all of these. So what I encourage you to do if you don't feel heard is to pop it in again, and I'll have a better chance of seeing it. And after we're done in about, I'd say we'll probably do about a formal presentation for approximately an hour or so. And at that point, we'll have more of a dialogue. So we'll stop the recording piece and we'll shift to conversation. If you want to just jot down, my email address so you can stay in touch, that's my personal. I'll also throw my work email into the chat. And if you visit my website, you'll see a ton of resources and all that you may find helpful. So feel free to go ahead and take a quick picture if you want, or whatever you'd like to do, screenshot, that kind of thing. Okay, so the plan for the day is we are going to focus on 5 different areas of how faculty can engage students. The first one's going to focus on very early interactions, like the first day of class. Then we're going to talk about outside of class interactions and how powerful they are. Then we'll talk about some teaching strategies. One of my favorites to talk about is meaningful assignments. And then finally, we'll talk about feedback. So it's a whole lot of ground to cover. I can't share all of the 50 stories with you in this short amount of time, but I will be sharing snippets of stories. So you won't even get full stories of every student, but you'll get pieces of it, I think, that will give you a nice grounding. And I know Stylus is also offering a discount code on the book. So I believe that was emailed out. I don't know if you can stick that into the chat as well. Otherwise, I can look it up. I know it's a 25% discount, I think, with free shipping. So feel free to take advantage if you want to hear more from my fabulous co-authors. Okay, so let's talk about engaging students on the very first day of class. So there are several goals that we have on day one. Certainly, we want to foster a sense of belonging. We want everyone to be included and feel like they're a part of this learning community. We want to get folks excited. We don't want a boring first day where they're just like, oh, my own sons, they would come and say, oh, first week is like nothing. They're just going over the syllabus. It's boring. I'm like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be so much fun. So it's not always the case, but unfortunately, many students do have a pretty ho-hum kind of experience on day one, which doesn't get them all jazzed and excited. So we need to get them all riled up and hopefully in a positive way. And then we need to start building their knowledge and skills. So it shouldn't just be fun and games on day one either. It needs to be content as well. So we're introducing them to each other, to us, to content, kind of weaving that needle and making sure that we get them all the information that they need. So I'm going to start with talking about fostering a sense of belonging. And one thing I just want to say real quick before I jump into their stories is, and you'll see research evidence too. So I'll do a nice mixture. Hopefully you'll like the balance between student stories and research evidence. When I wrote this book and I put the call out there for student contributors, I didn't know what I was going to get. And I had a table of contents in mind because you don't get an agreement with a publisher without that. You have to kind of plan that out. So I did plan that out, but I had to revise that significantly because students were like, yeah, I don't want to talk about that. This is what mattered to me. So I'm like, okay, this is what it is, because that's where the student stories are coming from. And quite honestly, everything that they talked about had a really strong research backing for. So it wasn't very hard to weave that story and research evidence kind of mix into the book. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to share with you the first story of today, which is Rosalind Stoa's story. I should mention that the students are from all different kinds of institutions from all different states. So there's a nice variety and a good level of diversity in terms of race, ethnicity, age, geographic location, majors, things of that. So hopefully you'll find that to be of value and helpful to you as well. So this first one, I'm going to go ahead and read along with you. So the first thing this professor had us do was to create a nameplate and write a note card with some personal information, like our name, our major, our minor, where we came from, what we wanted to do, a couple of fun facts about ourselves, why we're taking this class, and what we wanted to get out of it. That's kind of something that isn't like rocket science, right? I think we've all heard of this kind of introductory activity, and we probably have many of you used it before. So throughout the whole class, he kept high spirits and a smile. Now notice some of those small things that students really notice. Sometimes it's as simple as a smile. Giving us a little primer on what this class was going to all be about. And at the end, he took a picture of each of us holding our nameplates up and collected the note cards. This is obviously pre-Zoom days, because otherwise you can just take a nice quick screenshot and get everybody's name. You know, I got to say, one of the advantages of teaching on Zoom is having the name right there. It makes it a lot easier to get to know like who's matched up. Like I know I struggled a lot more in person. Anyway, I'm sorry, I digress. Let me get back to Rosalind's story. So he told us that it was his goal by the next class to get to know each of our names. And I thought for sure he was joking. I knew he had at least 100 students in all his classes, but sure enough, by the next class, he came up to me, called me by name, asked about my second major, which was business, and we talked about the applications of psychology to business, as well as my involvement in the swim team, which was one of my fun facts. So think about that. I know how challenging it can be to try to remember every student's name and information about them after only the first class. I mean, I know that that's not a small ask, but when you do that for students, like they remember, right? I mean, out of all the stories, this is what Rosalind wanted to talk about, right? So think about that. A student is asked to contribute to a book and to reflect on all the different experiences they have. And this is what they selected, right? Really powerful. So getting to know your students really does make a huge difference. I'm going to have RJ share in his own words how one of his faculty member used an icebreaker in an online class to get him excited and set up right from the beginning.
One online icebreaker that was particularly effective for me was when the professor asked us first to review the syllabus and then identify one topic on the syllabus that interested us most and why. So then we got into an asynchronous discussion online about what interested us, and through that we were all able to find common ground to move forward. But something actually amazing happened through that conversation. We not only identified what we were interested in and why, but we also revealed our fears about other modules that were coming down the pike. So not only were we able to find common ground on our interests, we were able to find common ground on our fears. And also the professor has insight as to what to flag down the line. So when we get to a certain module, and the professor knows that some of us are a little concerned about it, the professor then can reference the earlier conversation and has prior knowledge to help us maneuver through it. And from that, our fears were reduced and we were able to navigate the assignments more effectively.
So what I love about what RJ talks about is that how this icebreaker really alleviated fears, right? So first it made them bubble up. What am I scared of? Like, what am I worried about? But then it kind of helped them like, okay, it's not going to be so bad. And I think I have a path forward. So we can really use these icebreakers in ways. And I think sometimes we forget as faculty at how impactful these very small, brief, activities can really have such a significant impact for our students. So I'm going to go ahead and share now a research study and this has to do with an icebreaker activity. But what I like about this particular study is that it is focused on similarities. So here is what happened. It was with high school students versus college students, but I think you're going to like it, and I think it transfers. So I'm sharing it anyway. So even though I know we're all in college, what they did is they had high school students and their teachers fill out this survey, kind of like a getting to know you type survey. And then students and teachers were provided with either, here are 5 similarities you share with your teachers, or here's 5 similarities you share with students at another school. So you see how it was like an experimental kind of scenario, that they had either one or the other. So let's take a look at the findings. So when you look here at the results, these are really pretty powerful. Those who were in the group where they were shared, their similarities were teacher to student similarities that were shared. They reported having better relationships with their teachers, higher course grades. And for those of you who are passionate about equity like I am, look at this for a minute. They closed the equity gap by 60%. That's a huge shift. Now think about that. The only thing that was really different between these two classes was whether or not your survey results were used in a way to help you see similarities between you and your faculty member. We know so many of our students are coming, especially in the community college setting, not immediately seeing a similarity between them and their faculty member. I'm a white female. Many of my students were not white, right? So, you know, and you can't tell because I'm sitting down, but I'm a short little white female too. You know, so there's other variables too that people are going to look at and either feel like they connect with or they don't connect with. And it's not always really obvious. So when you take the survey and now you're like explicitly seeing, oh, well, we both like to go to the beach in the summer or whatever it was, right? It starts to really show that, you know, that you have more in common than you think. So really powerful. There's a lot of different kind of icebreakers. We don't have time today to talk about all of them, but I guess what I want to do is kind of make a plea to get you thinking about how could your icebreaker focus on similarities if we know there's research evidence for this. All right, this is time for you to guys get in charge and get your fingers ready. It's going to be chat time. So what strategies do you use to learn the names of your students, and what are some interesting facts about them, or what new strategies might you try? So this is a chance for you to go ahead and chat away, and I'll take a moment to just pause and let you write. All right, I'm seeing them to come through. So thank you so much. Well, Jessica's our first participant. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. I'll just mirror your strategy, you know, so we repeat their name when they say something. That's a great one. Oh my gosh, now they're piling in. Everyone kind of did it at the same time. Repeating the names, memory. You know, I as a psychology faculty member, I would always start with the memory chapter and I'd tuck it into our name game that we would play on day 1, because then they're learning content and names at the same time. So that was kind of a great way to double dip for me. That's really awesome. I'm loving this, asking them some information that's unique. So I see some others doing memory games also. That's terrific. Excellent. You know, so you kind of created like the Zoom kind of note card. Put your name on your desk for a little while in the beginning so I can see it, right? I really want to get to know you. I love it. We got some cool technology things like Padlet. That's terrific. Where did their name come from? So it's not just the name that you're getting, but you're providing context and meaning and stories around it. I think those really help us remember significantly. Really important stuff. Excellent. So I see some of you are like, hey, that was my idea. I did that too. Terrific. Well, thank you so much for sharing those ideas. I know what you're going to get today, hopefully, is as much value out of the chat as you do from the stories of the students directly and from the presentation. So please continue to go ahead and jot your ideas down, because I'm sure your fellow participants will love to see them. But for the sake of time, I'm going to continue on, but feel free to keep going if you want. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is generating excitement. And I want to share with you Christy's story. So let's take a look at this one. I'm going to let you read this one yourself. It's a little bit shorter, so go ahead. So I was surprised that people are talking about their textbook, right? Like this is, wow, like this is a little encouraging and exciting. And, again, they want to know the why, they want to understand the rationale and get, you sharing, why each book is being used in this class. I mean, the power of why, and I don't know if, for any folks who have little kids in the room, I remember like age 3 or so was the why age. Everything was why, right? That's how we get that curiosity. Well, that doesn't really go away. I remember if you give, like if I gave my kids anyway, great answers to that, they would be like, all right, well, good. But sometimes, my son would be like, well, how do you do? And he'd be like a little bit more challenging. But, the rationale does help. Really providing that can provide a lot of ways to engage your students. So it doesn't always have to be something like, I got to be theatrical and I have to be real magical in my classroom. It can be sometimes as simple as, what, I'm just sharing with you the why and the rationale or what I'm doing. Then it looks like you know what you're doing and they understand the reason for the assignment. And now all of a sudden it has more value to them. So really powerful. All right, the last thing I'm going to talk about in terms of first day is developing knowledge and skills. So again, I mentioned before that we want to have the fun icebreakers, we want to engage our students, but we don't want to ignore our course content and discipline. So here's a great example from Kaylee, and I'll go ahead and read this one to you. I'll mix it up. Sometimes I'll read it. Sometimes I'll have you read it. So Kaylee says, first day of college is normally a long drawn out reading of the syllabus. Well, that's a little sad, that first sentence, isn't it? I hope that that's not the case, but apparently it was in her world. However, in my math methods and assessment class, we were immediately engaged with the course content. This course involved exploring different methods of solving mathematical problems, unique ways to assess students on the skills that they learn in the classroom. For faculty looking to create a more engaging classroom environment on the first day of class, I suggest finding an activity that touches on the big ideas you wish to cover in your course to give the student an overview of what's in store for them. You also want to foster curiosity in your students so they keep coming back hungry to learn more. So now I didn't get to share the whole story that Kaylee wrote about, but basically they were put into groups like on day one and they had to solve mathematical problems and they all approached it differently. So that was a really powerful way for them to get to know each other because they were in the groups, but also to dig into the content and the processes and walk out. When you walk out of your first class feeling like you've learned something already, it builds your self-efficacy, right? It fuels you. And that curiosity that Kaylee talked about is really important as well. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about, and this is one of my favorites actually to talk about, is going to focus on connecting with students. There are things we can do both inside of the class and outside of the class. So let's start first with the inside of class activities. Our relationship matters. There's a ton of research that shows students who have good relationships with their faculty are more motivated, have higher levels of confidence, and end up learning more. So we need to foster these relationships, and we can begin to foster those in class, but we also need to extend those beyond class. So getting to know our students in class. I'll let you go ahead and read Michael's comment here about what his faculty member did. And I heard some other students, you'll see in the book also that other students talk about the polling to get a sense of what your interests are so they can try to cater to their student. It shouldn't be a, out of the box kind of class that you do the same thing every semester. It should kind of evolve. I mean, obviously the learning outcomes are all going to stay the same, but the way in which you get there and you approach those outcomes can vary based on who your student population is. So this faculty member really did quite a lot to help Michael in this instance get engaged in the class, because they modified the lectures and all based on that. And also kind of this was a good bridge to the outside of class connections by starting to email Michael things that might be of interest to him. So they weren't just generic to the whole class, but hey, Michael, I think you might be really interested in this particular article based on our conversation. It doesn't take a whole lot of time on our end and really can make quite a bit of impact on students. All right, we do need to get to know our students outside of class too. And I'm going to start with Sarah, who's going to, in her own words, you'll get to see her video, share about how the advising days really helped her get engaged. Okay, here we go. Here's Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah and I'm a junior at Stockton University. And I'm talking about my preceptor who's at Stockton. We have a preceptor when we start here, and they sort of serve as our academic advisor. They help you with picking your classes, making sure you're on track to graduate. But in my case, my preceptor became a lot more than that to me. She wasn't just a random meeting I had to go to once a semester. She helped me with being more confident in myself, knowing that I had chosen the right major, helping me to develop my writing abilities, pushing myself to take harder courses than I thought. And she did this just through making a personal connection with me. I always felt like I could talk to her, felt like she understood me, she knew what was going on in my life. Even just through asking me a couple questions. If we did a discussion board, she replied with a personal comment. Things like that really went a long way with me, especially when I was a freshman and I met her. And I'm really grateful for that whole experience and having preceptors that Stockton offers.
So really powerful outside of class activity that really made a difference for Sarah. I have two other stories I want to share with you about outside of class activities. I'll let you read this one yourself since it's a short one. Again, a pretty simple thing that most of us probably do, but we may want to just do a little more intentionally, is letting students know we're there and we want them to come and talk with us, and we're going to modify our schedules to make sure. I mean, in my life, I don't know about you, I'm sure your position is just as busy as mine. I'm always feeling like a rubber band ready to snap. I don't know, sometimes I'm like, how on earth am I going to get all the things I got to get done? But when a student comes, it grounds me, for me, and sometimes students are like, I know you're busy, I don't want to bother you. I'm like, no, you're my priority. The rest of the stuff, can wait, this is what I do. Please come and talk to me. That's what I want you to do. So let's hear from another student. This one's Joshua. I'll go ahead and read this one to you. First semester, I was taking a course I wasn't particularly interested in. Oh, some of us have had students like that, right? We've been those students ourselves sometimes. To make matters worse, it was an early morning class. Oh, I hope it wasn't one of those 8 o'clockers. My level of engagement was effectively non-existent, he says in his own words. And that disengagement and lack of desire undoubtedly showed in the classroom. If he had never asked me to meet with him in person, I could have easily dismissed even the elevated level of care I noticed he had in the class as insignificant. Instead, a few minutes of an actual conversation made all the difference, and seeing he genuinely cared engaged me to do the same. Now, the part of the story that you didn't get to hear from Joshua is that he missed an exam. And he was like, oh boy, this is not going to go over well. I have to email my professor and find out what's going to happen. So he emailed the professor, and the professor said, why don't you come to my office and chat? So, and Joshua in the story says, that doesn't sound like it's going to be good. But to his surprise, when he walked in, he didn't start talking about the exam that he missed. Instead, he talked about, so how are you? What's going on? And that was like a breath of fresh air. Joshua it really made a difference. And actually, he still has a relationship with this faculty member today. So, it's hard to tell you the whole full story in this short presentation. That's why you really want to go and check them out directly. But really powerful, right? So relationships matter so much. This is one of my favorite finds, and I found this on public scholarship, actually not in the databases. So sometimes you find some really good, interesting data out there on Inside Higher Ed, things of that nature. We got a Stacy, that's your college. I hope it, well, you'll have to hope I do justice by it. And if there's anything else, Jennifer too, let me know. And I'd love to hear more about it because I'm just so in awe of this project, to be honest with you. What they did, from my understanding, and again, it was LinkedIn article or Inside Higher Ed, I believe it was, they basically tried to do this, let's do a 15-minute meeting. And it was kind of a campus-wide initiative, volunteer based. And faculty kind of either raised their hand or didn't. If you raised your hand, you basically said, yes, I'll have a 15-minute conversation with each one of my students. So here's what the data means. If we look on the left-hand side of the screen, the darker like red color is the overall persistence rate of their students from fall 2017 to fall 2018. And that's if they didn't have anyone that participated, like they didn't have any faculty member that raised their hand and did the 15-minute. If they had at least one faculty member who were participating in the 15-minute meeting where they had to meet with their student one time for 15 minutes, now they could have met more, but that was kind of like the bar that was set. Look at how much of a difference that is. Like that's a huge way. 15 minutes. Now I know it's not just 15 minutes because you got times that by all those students, but 15 minutes really made a humongous difference in their own individual world. That's a 51 to up to a 60, almost a 66% persistence rate. That's huge. We're talking about a 15% difference there. And in terms of equity gaps, they were able to show that for some students, like Black students in particular, it was also a really powerful intervention. Now, unfortunately for the Black students, it didn't mirror, it still was always less than, I'm longing for the day when we don't have to show data that shows Black students aren't having the same level of persistence and completion. But this is, if you have the 15-minute meeting, you're getting pretty darn close and you exceeded the general population that didn't. But you see what a difference it was for Black students without the intervention was 42, with was 60. So we're talking about a good 18% or so difference there. This is huge. They did not report anything on the Latinx population, but we do have a couple of folks from Oakton. So I don't know if they reported everything. I only got information off of that Inside Higher Ed article. So if any of the Oakton folks know that there's more data, please share it. I'd love to learn more about what you're doing. I've been talking about this everywhere. It's such a cool intervention, and what a powerful one from an equity lens. Love it. Okay, so we need to help our students outside of the classroom for many reasons. And, sometimes folks will focus almost exclusively on the academic purpose of helping them be better in class. But the truth is they're coming to school as part of their career pathway, and I know some of us don't like being called, well, we're more than a career. We're not a career training program. Okay, fine. We're not going to get into that discussion with you right now. What role community colleges play, but we play a significant role in careers. We can all agree on that. May not be the only role we play, but it's a significant role. So when we think about our responsibility, it doesn't start and stop in the classroom. It is about preparing them and getting them set up to be successful beyond the community college classroom or beyond the bachelor degree classroom. And that means they need to go and not just have a degree, but that degree's got to translate into higher paying, more higher status level jobs. And what we unfortunately know is that many of our community college students in particular come in the door not having robust networks set up. And when they do have networks, they're often not as many members that we would call of high status. Really, really troubling. And we want to try to use our relationships, because to me, I actually think this matters way more than any of the content we're going to deliver to them. It's, helping them build their overall skills, but also helping them build their professional network. So what they found here was that women and students of color are less likely to have high status networks. However, once they were given the opportunity to interact with these high status folks, then they were just as likely as white men to be able to have those high status network members. So we can make a huge difference by helping students connect to one another. I was just on this event yesterday. It was hosted by LinkedIn. I don't know if anyone else was on that. I'm trying to find my little cheat sheet notes from it yesterday. So disturbing to me. I was so mad at these. It was terrible. I just was not happy with it at all. Yeah, here it is. So it was a session on the equity gap is really a network gap. And I loved it, because it was a really powerful presentation. And I wanted to share with you that community college students are underrepresented on LinkedIn. So when you think LinkedIn isn't like the be all to end all, it's not the only way to, create a network and leverage that network. But in today's society, it's a very strong pathway. And what they showed was that community college students are underrepresented. Only about 14% of community college students are on LinkedIn. Compare that to four-year publics, which is 22%. Compare that to four-year privates, 45%. Compare that to Ivy League students was 52%. 14 to 52 on the small, on the lower end to the higher end. So again, I'm not saying that being on LinkedIn is going to be the be all to end all, but it is part of what we need to do, is helping them develop their network. And I'm a big fan of informational interviews, of really engaging students in conversations. I did see in the chat, it feels like I love this idea, but how on earth do you do it, right? And isn't that the case, right? That is the challenge, right? I know it is so hard. So here's my suggestion, and I don't know what your institutional policies are, so I don't know if I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I would say if we know that this individual contact with student matters so much, I would use class time if I had to. Like, I think out of class time is really important, but if you can't do all of that and you have students working in groups and you have one-on-one meetings with them, not for the whole class for the whole semester, but you use a little bit of time that way to help you compensate for some of that outside of time that you have to engage. I think we need to find a way. And quite honestly, if you do, you're probably going to get better products from your students also, because if they feel committed to you, like the other students said, this faculty member, when he cared about me, I had to replicate, I had to care about him, I had to mirror that. So if he's all in, then he's going to provide you with more higher level products, and also maybe your grading time will go down, because I don't know about you, but the grading time is the worst when it's like, oh, this isn't what I wanted. So I think there's ways we have to get creative, and maybe we need to try a study to see, well, what if we just did a small group? We got 2 or 3 students together. Would that have the same impact? I don't know. I think it probably still would have a pretty significant impact. I think the key is having a faculty member care enough about you to contact you and talk to you outside of class. But I don't have a study to do that, but I am willing to partner with anyone. So you reach out to me if you want to kind of figure out a way to do some of this work, because it's so important. All right, let's go ahead and talk. We're going to give you a chance to chat again. So how do you encourage students, especially those who may not typically do so, to visit you outside of class? What do you do? So I'll give you a chance to go ahead and jot your ideas in the chat. Stacy, it's the grading part. You give it points, right? And I think that it's valuable to give it points. And I often like to tuck a reflection kind of activity into it, so I can kind of hear what their experience was, and then there's something tangible, that I would just kind of give completion points for. They don't get judged on whether they had a good time or not with me, but did they actually show up and things of that nature. Let's see. Back in the day when we were able to be in person, it was a little easier, right? You could draw them in with candy and things like that, right? That's great. You might have coffee mugs for them to choose from. I like that. That's terrific. Oh, you know what? This is a really good thing. Changing the language to student help hours. Oh, Greg, you know what I love about that is a lot of people are saying, let's change it from office hours to student hours. I still don't think they know exactly what that means, but student help hours kind of indicates what it is. But I was having this conversation with some folks in a session I did not too long ago, and I want to ensure that students don't always need help in order to come. Like, maybe they're doing just fine in the class, but they want to have an intellectual conversation with me about something. So I think we want to try to figure out, and I don't have the right answer, so I'm open to ideas. I don't have a great solution to this, but I think we want to be mindful of all the words. And sometimes when we replace a word, sometimes that other word then is loaded with some other potential problems too. But the word help, I think, is good because they know what the intent of it is, but maybe that's not the only reason. Maybe it's a career conversation, different things like that. Student time. Oh, I like that. Student time. That's a good way to do it. I may jot that one down. Thank you, Stacy. Student time. I sometimes just, instead of using a word, I just describe it, like, and sometimes I can't get it in a word, so I have to do like a sentence or something on my syllabus. All right, great. Well, go ahead and keep those ideas coming, but I'm going to move on to the next area so we can stay on track here. Teaching strategies. This is an area I could talk all day and night about also, but I'm only going to, extract a few examples to give you a flavor of what students are saying. So one is make it personal. The second one is use demonstrations. And the third is please let me collaborate with others. So let's talk about these. Let's start with the make it personal. I actually have two students who are going to share their story in their own voice. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Not everyone volunteered to do videos, as you can tell. So we have some written ones, but I love it when they actually say it themselves. So here they are. Here's Aditya.
Hi, my name is Aditya Shah, and I'm a senior at Princeton studying economics. When I entered the lecture hall for my first day of statistics class, I was only
I hit something. Here we go.
Really expecting the professor to go over the syllabus and maybe give us a brief overview of what we were to learn throughout the semester. But to my surprise, my professor, after introducing himself, asked us to fill out a form that he had created. My friends and I thought that it was just an administrative form to get some information about the class, but instead we were asked very interesting questions such as what is our height, how many siblings do we have, or even for us to guess what the average SAT score was in the entire lecture. And so after we filled out the form, our professor explained to us that he's going to use our responses as a data set in order to inform the examples he gives us throughout the semester. And he did so. He used the distribution of the lectures, the number of siblings that each person has in the lecture, as a way to explain the law of large numbers. And he used these examples to illustrate the difference between correlation, causation, and so many other statistical concepts. And I really appreciated this, and it helped me to stay engaged in the class because our professor wasn't using abstract data sets that we had never seen or never even knew of, but he was actually using our data. He was including us into the examples, and that definitely helped me to learn the concepts a lot better.
Okay, so we heard Aditya's story, and I guess one of the things that makes me sad is a lot of these students start off with, well, I was only expecting this to happen. Like the bar is really like, it's easy to surpass what they're expecting on day one. A boring rant of the syllabus, going over. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to tell you, how many student stories had that kind of beginning is a little sad. But I love how strategic this faculty member was really at gathering that information to weave it in. So the entire semester they're dealing with data that is completely and directly relevant to them. So terrific. All right, now I'm going to share this note card activity that a faculty member at the College of Charleston used. I just have to move my little Zoom, your faces up so I can get to the recording. Oh, okay.
So when I was an undergrad, I took a class called Religion in American Politics. One of our assignments for that class was to bring in every class an index card that was filled with our thoughts, experiences, questions about religion and how it is so intertwined with our political systems. So this could be, an experience that we had earlier that day, and we wanted to jot it down because it seemed relevant, or our opinions about something that had happened in the news recently relating to religion and American politics. And the idea was that our professor would read them through, and the following class would anonymously share some of the really striking and notable thoughts that he saw from each of those index cards. And I really liked this task because, for one, it allowed people who don't participate as much in class discussion to be able to, have their views heard, because a lot of time people feel insecure to share in class, and that's a main reason why they don't contribute, but this opportunity actually allowed them to get their point out there so that a discussion could be had about what they were saying, which is really important. And also for people who even do participate, this was really important because there might be topics that people want to bring up in class related to the conversation at hand, but it might be a little too personal, or, someone might be uncomfortable sharing, something about some event that happened to them, or, their opinions on something. So it allowed for, a really calm discourse about topics that people might not be comfortable bringing up in a normal circumstance of class.
All right, so another excellent example by Ben. So we're going to, oh, here we go. We're going to shift over to demonstrations. And I have another student who will share in his own voice, David, how this demonstration really engaged him. So let's listen to David, and then we'll look at some data on demonstrations and why they're so powerful.
Hello everyone, I am David Lant, an aerospace engineering student at Western Michigan University, and the story I shared in Dr. Harrington's book was about the first time I learned what exactly the force of Newton was, and this was during University Physics 1 lecture, and the professor came out with a cart and just handed out lots and lots of these toy apples, which were weighed to be equivalent to the force of 1 Newton on Earth. And it was really enlightening for me to be able to hold in my hand what a Newton felt like, the force of 1 Newton going down my hand. And it was really interesting to be able to visualize something that had previously only been very conceptual, kind of estimating by like what I know how much a kilogram weighs and so on. And then recently, this last fall of 2020, with classes being online during my aircraft structures class, the professor said that he would usually bring like a foam beam. We were learning about beam bending and the torsion and how it affects. And instead he was able to use a video and pause and then let the students make comments about it to see what they could observe. And it was very enlightening also to see like how a beam bends and distorts, because the equations were they were just very not easy to understand. They were pretty complicated, pretty complex, and being able to see the complexity into action as to what the equations were describing was also very helpful. And now I'm seeing it this semester, the spring of 2021, in my propulsion. My professor has put videos throughout when she talks about the rockets, so that we can be able to make these observations of how the rocket is working, and to be able to make us make some observations. So that's the strategies I'm sharing with you guys. Hope you all have a great day.
So that's some really great examples from David. And I love that he didn't just focus on what he wrote about in the book, but also with some of his more recent Zoom kinds of experiences, in the new world that we're living in. As you'll see, you could see from RJ earlier, some of the students are online students, some are in person. I forgot to mention that diversity factor earlier. So let's talk about collaborative activity. Before we do that, let me just share some research. I mean, there's a ton of research that really speaks to demonstrations and learning and how much that really makes a difference. So students really report being much more engaged in their learning experience, and they have higher levels of academic achievement if there are demonstrations incorporated into the teaching practices. So we learn by watching, right? I mean, that's not really surprising. Bandora's observational learning kind of tells us that we learn by watching, and we want to see it, not just hear about it or try to visualize it, but we want to actually see it happen. So whenever we can incorporate either live or virtual demonstrations, I think it's a big win for our students. Okay, the last technique we're going to talk about from a teaching perspective is collaborative activities, and then we'll shift over to assignments and feedback. Okay, so collaborative activities. I have two students who are going to share their perspectives, but I have them in words only. So I'll go ahead and read this to you as soon as I shift the Zoom location again. All right, here we go. So in this class, the instructor assigned a group project that required students to research an organization. And before starting the project, the instructor asked students to share what type of career they wanted to pursue. Each student was then placed into a team based on their career interests. Students also had to complete modules to learn interpersonal skills that would be helpful for teamwork. After each team member completed the modules, each team was asked to elect a leader, assign roles for the remainder of the team members, and agree on rules for the project. So what you can really hear from Edwin here is that collaboration is important, but look at all of the guidance and structure that was provided. It really, I think, was a positive experience because there was intentionality in terms of how students were grouped together based on their career interest and all. Like, it wasn't a haphazard process, which random is fine too. And actually, one thing I will say about assigning groups, it is important to assign groups, because if you let students choose their own, you may be creating an equity problem there, because students who are going to most likely end up being in a group with people who are like them. And as you know, the higher SES and the lower SES and, different races and ethnicities, people tend to go in the same space. So if you want to have more diversity, you are going to need to assign groups, and you can do it either in these intentional ways like Edwin shared, or you can even do random assignment and things of that nature too. Plus, that way no one doesn't have a sense of belonging is really important. Like, everybody else grouped up and you're like kind of hanging out. Whose group am I going to go into? It's very awkward for students. All right, let's hear about Rosemary's example. Okay, I'll let you read this one. All right, so you can see, obviously this was a super engaging project, right? And a little bit more challenging to pull off as a faculty member if you don't have these relationships and stuff already established. It would take, you couldn't just decide to do this tomorrow. It would take a little bit more planning and all, but you can see how powerful it really was. So, some really excellent ideas shared by students. And I just want to share with you that the research, as you probably know, really does support this. Collaboration and learning are highly correlated. But here's the really sad news. If you look at the sense data through the Center for Community College Student Engagement, the CESE folks, 68% of college students who filled out the sense said they never worked with a classmate outside of class on a project. Never. That's almost 70% of students. What? Now, I know we're trying to be mindful. Our students have complex lives. Getting together for group work is complicated. I mean, I know we have to balance all of those competing issues, but we also know that if you don't give them those opportunities, we're also robbing them of some learning and engagement strategies. So we do have to find a way. And 22% said they never even did it in class. So I've been a real big fan at incorporating group work into class for a couple of reasons. A, because the time issue is always the biggest issue, especially with the community college population. Our students, as you know, are working, family obligations, all different kinds of things that are going on in their lives, and all different schedules. So I know that that's super challenging. So I do try to do at least a majority of it in class, but you can find ways for them to collaborate, even if it's on Google Docs and other things. That it doesn't all have to be synchronous collaboration. They can still engage with one another. And I think hopefully that might be one of the positives that came out of the pandemic. I feel like I've discovered two positives, really. Only I don't know if others have a longer list than me, but one is, and I know I'm focused more on education, but we are more tech savvy than we ever were. We're going to use more creative strategies that made us really rethink what really matters and how can we do things. And then personally, I'm so thrilled that the airlines are going to allow us to change our flights moving forward. So I hope that that's a commitment that they stay good on. I have it in writing from them that there's a permanent change. So I'm hoping that that's the case. So it's been so much awfulness. You got to try to focus on some of those little tiny shining stars in the middle of it. Okay, let's go ahead. It's chat time for you. So how do you use collaborative activities? It's your turn to share some ideas. Okay, so I see a lot of good technology tools, the breakouts in Zoom. I mean, they are phenomenal, right? It kind of mirrors what we do in live, in person, but there's some really cool things. I know, like the sharing of Google Docs. I heard a faculty member say, I never did that in live class. And why can't I? Like, they could be doing that collaboratively together also. So even looking at some of that. Oh my gosh, so many good things. Flipgrid, some of those other technology tools, getting them involved in debating each other, peer review, group presentations. Love it. Lots of really great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing. I know your fellow participants are appreciative. So thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to creating meaningful assignments. So we want our assignments, we want to make sure that we build in choice and structure. So I would actually argue that choice is one of those things that we can do to try to address equity gaps, because so often we have a very, like, maybe you get to choose your major. Okay, great. And maybe you get to choose a couple of classes within, categories, which social science class do you want? And then once you get there, you don't really get much choice. Then once you get to the class, like maybe you get to choose the topic for your paper, but it's going to be probably confined in some way. And, you probably don't get to choose whether it's a paper or a presentation or a website or some other thing. So I want us to try to build in more choice, but we also need to provide structure, because transparency is also a way to ensure that all students kind of have a more equal playing field, because otherwise our first-gen students who don't know how to navigate and understand all our jargon are going to be left behind. And the students with higher levels of social capital and know how to do this whole college thing because they got big brothers or big sisters or other people in their communities that have kind of helped them out, they're going to be better off. So we need to be clearer about all of our expectations and create roadmaps for students. I think it's really important. Our authentic assignments and assignments that foster creativity were also things that students really resonated with them. So let me go ahead and start with choice. I'm going to begin with Caleb telling you about why choice in assignments mattered so much.
In graduate school, I took a course where the professor allowed her students to choose the types of assignments we completed as part of the class. This allowed us to pick assignments that fit with our strengths and future goals. For instance, I chose to complete a research paper because it was the best way for me to focus and share my thoughts and knowledge, and I could then use the paper as a writing sample for future applications or as the start of a publication project. Other classmates may have chosen to do a presentation or a creative media project because those assignments fit with their skills and goals. I really enjoyed having a choice in the type of assignment I completed because I felt more ownership of my learning and how I could demonstrate that learning to my professor.
I love it. Now, you notice the reference was graduate school. I think we give more choice to graduate students than we do to undergraduate students. So I'm going to kind of put this call out there and challenge you to think about how you can infuse more choice into your classes. Now, we need a balanced choice with structure, and Sarah will talk about why structure mattered.
Greetings, my name is Sarah Lyman Kravitz, and I'm here with a tip for engaging students in an online course. So I took a course with Dr. Susan Goldbeck at Rutgers University Graduate School of Ed. She had very clear and specific directions for how we were to participate in discussion. We had 9 posts through the week, 5 originals and 4 responses to other people. And they needed to be spaced throughout the week. And she was very clear about these instructions. So having to both write our own original posts and respond to other people, and having to do this at intervals throughout the week, kept us engaged in what was happening, kept us aware of what other students were thinking, and quite naturally got us thinking more deeply and more broadly than we would have been on our own.
So really gives you a great example of an assignment that mattered to her, and how the structure and all also was really supportive of the process. Next student is going to talk to you about authentic assignments, but this one is not a video, and I'll let you go ahead and read this one. I find that last sentence really powerful. I was working full time there, but if I didn't have this assignment, I would not have felt qualified to create, right? So think about that, like the person was already in the position, but because the assignment empowered them really, right? So we can give assignments that empower. And actually this student contacted me to say, guess what? They actually did it. Like it was really awesome, like it wasn't just like, yes, they're going to, they actually did make this change at their institution. So think about how wonderful that was for her and way better than most other assignments that we could have done, right? Really great story by Carrie. I'm going to let this student, Caitlin, share in her own words, her assignment that was authentic.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Ely, and I graduated from Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania in 2019. I majored in International Studies and double minored in German and Women's and Gender Studies. Muhlenberg is a liberal arts school, and I was lucky to take a wide variety of classes during my undergraduate career. My most memorable class by far was Psychology of Women taught by Dr. Kate Richmond. In this class, we discussed topics ranging from motherhood, defining gender, first sex, and race through a gendered lens. Our final project was to create new, engaging sexual education curricula for an assigned age group: children, adolescents, young adults, and the aging community. To begin brainstorming, our professor listed 9 topic areas above on a large piece of paper and taped them around the room. The class broke into groups and performed a round robin, writing down everything that came to mind when we read the listed topic area. For an example, under biological, we wrote terms such as the reproductive system, hormones, and puberty. And under the term power, we wrote words such as straight, white, and sexual assault. After 5 minutes, we rotated around the room to read ideas already written and added to that list as well. After collecting peer-reviewed sources and researching already approved sexual education lessons and curricula, we developed and presented our new curriculum to the psychology department of Muhlenberg. My group focused on aging, and we developed a curriculum that addressed menopause, femininity, motherhood, divorce, and sexual intercourse in the aging community. The curriculum for the children cohort, however, looked quite different and focused on reproductive system terminology and puberty. My professor allowed us to explore sexual education in a new way and thinking about what different populations need. The most engaging part of this project was knowing that this curriculum can not only be taught, but can help a lot of people understand their bodies, emotions, and feelings as they age. It was helpful knowing too that while this project was a part of the class, I was creating something that could be used to educate an underrepresented community in the sexual education world.
So I'm hoping you're getting I don't know, whatever I was reading these stories and hearing them, I just got all like emotional, and it's really kind of cool to hear how assignments are motivational, right? Who would have thought? It's kind of great. Now let's talk about creativity and assignments. This is also something that really came through, and I'll be honest, I didn't have this on my initial TOC, my table of contents. Instead we, had to adjust a little bit as students like, no, I want to talk about this. So I said to my publisher, I'm like, we got to modify. Unfortunately, they were all on board with it. So you can see there's definitely a lot of research support that shows creative coursework really builds confidence in so many different skills. It's so important, and we lack this quite a bit in many of our courses. I mean, there are courses that are built on creative processes, but if you look across the curriculum, it's probably not as much of that as we should hope to see. So let me share with you Julie's comment here. I'm going to let you read this one yourself. So, Julie's, really got an interesting story to tell, but like what kind of drew me into the middle was, well, I was making this silent judgment, thinking, oh, I guess they're doing that as much as we are, right? We're all making judgments all the time, as much as we want to pretend we're not. But it was really interesting how she had this initial perception, even though the actual things didn't change. But then once she heard kind of it's all kind of gelling together, and now I'm going to get some choice over this. I like that. Really made a difference. Again, she mentioned the amount of work and all didn't change, but then the mindset around that work really did, because of the avenue for creativity there. I'll share this one. Kara at Gateway Technical College out in Wisconsin said, in one of the first assignments, we had to introduce ourselves through a brief speech. When I introduced myself and included that I'm also Mexican, Native American, and a lesbian, Professor Hankins didn't even blink an eye throughout the entire speech. Instead, my introductory speech was met with smiles and enthusiasm from being so open and speaking in such an eloquent way. From introductory speeches to persuasive and informative ones, we had free rein to explore topics and pick something that we were passionate about. There's that smile again, right? Sometimes it's as simple as things that, students are looking to see how we're reacting to what their contributions are. And I think that some of that freedom there, and obviously a faculty member who's really very inclusive and very supportive of all our students, really made a difference for Kara. I'm going to let Genevieve tell her story in her words. Here you go.
So my freshman year of my undergraduate studies, I actually was in a course called INQ, or Creative Inquiry, which is the first class you're put into upon entry into my college, and it's meant to introduce freshmen to college life and what college courses are like. So part of this class required a creative project, and quickly I became very engaged with this class because both of my professors made sure to do one-on-one meetings where they would sit down with you and look at you and say, what are your passions? What do you care about? What do you want to change? What kind of things engage you? What kind of things excite you? What kind of things make you nervous, make you fear, make you mad? It was a really personal and effective way to engage students by showing A, that they really cared, and B, allowing for that creative expression that is so important in finding your own perspective as a student, just as a human, and finding your own perspective and passions. And very quickly after this, I became increasingly kind of concerned and wrapped up in this idea of leadership, and I then went on to do a whole project and a study about leadership and happiness and how those two things are correlated. And years later, 3+ years later, I am still working to tutor students and help guide them in this class to help find their own passions and to help find their own perspective, loves, fears, to then build this project that's required of them. So if I could say one thing to professors, it would be to really consider the significance of giving your students the opportunity to of self-expression, really, allowing for this without these harsh rules and guidelines, even if it's not a creative class, allowing for some sort of students' personality and opinions to come through in creative and personal ways, regardless of the class, because that's really important to helping your student find their own perspective and also excel and find interest in any course.
Excellent advice, right? I hope we all take that. Really great advice. Okay.
Hello,
well,
my name is
This is Christina.
And I am one of the student contributors to the Keeping Us Engaged book. I earned my PhD in 2019 in education. And in the book, I share a story about a professor who has since retired, and his assignments were all about imagination and creativity. He actually started every course meeting with a poem or some kind of story, sometimes from children's books. And then in the assignments, we were allowed to use our imagination and to be creative. We could free write, we could write our own poems. We had one assignment where we made conceptual maps where we were just imagining all the different ways that our research could be designed. And for me, this was a really freeing course and experience because I'd gotten so used to, in education, following specific structures, and as a doctoral student, being sure that I was reading all the right scholarship and not missing anything, and citing people properly, and he said just let that go for now, which really helped me find my research topic. It helped me find what I really cared about, and I'm just so grateful for that experience. And so my tip for instructors is to look at your course and your curriculum and think about where you can infuse for students opportunities for creativity and imagination.
So some additional great advice there. It's your turn now to share some ideas about what you do to foster creativity or authenticity in your assignments. So I'll pause for a minute to let you do that, and then we'll talk about our last piece, feedback, before opening it up for conversation. So I see some of it has to do with format, maybe allowing folks to use whatever format that they want. Let's see, ESL students apply language skills on a cover letter and a career module, so again, that's a real authentic skill that they're going to need. Loving this. Volcanoes, let's see what this one's about. Oh, they pretend they're time travelers. Oh, okay. The Roman city of Pompeii on the day that the volcano. Okay, it takes 3 items, and what can they do for escaping? So getting some of that is great. Picking topics, sometimes it doesn't have to be that complicated. You could do it that way for sure. Trying to find the direct relevance. So you want them, if they don't see it immediately, help them see why that skill is going to help them in their future career, so that it's authentic. And then some of that creativity, and sometimes it's more fun to grade, also, like, instead of all the traditional papers. I don't know. I do a lot. I'm reading all day. I'm in the doctoral program now. So I got dissertation chapters coming at me every 5 minutes. I'm pumping out all these dissertation chapters, and I've become I think a pretty good editor. But then we do other things like pechacochas and things like that. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to give your students some opportunities to be creative. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we open it up for dialogue is to talk about feedback and engagement. So, there are several different things that we're going to look at here. Formative assessments, which are, as you know, the ones that kind of build up to the summative. So you and the student know, are they on track? Or are they not on track? The importance of revision, and then finally reinforcing strengths. So let's start with formative assessment. I came across this really interesting article by Terrace. It's a little dated now, but it really spoke to me, because it basically said we had an equity problem that I was not aware of. There's a gazillion equity problems in the world, but basically what Tara said is that we treat all undergraduates pretty unfairly. And the primary, kind of premise of this argument was that we don't give undergraduates enough opportunity to learn from feedback. So it's a once and done. You get one chance at a paper, and I'm going to give you feedback, and I'm going to hope that you use that the next time, and you're going to get one shot at an exam, one shot at a presentation. Whereas the difference is for you and I and graduate students, if you, if you get, like, let's say you submit an article for publication, you're going to get more feedback than you probably even wanted, right? You're going to get a whole lot of feedback, and not always, but you'll often get a revise, resubmit kind of opportunity that undergraduates are not always afforded. So we want to think about ways we can try to build in some of that feedback process into our classes. So Students seem to really care about this. Kayla, for instance, she's like, my professor designed the final project to be completed throughout the semester by making certain pieces of it due on certain weeks leading up to the final date. This gave us the opportunity to complete the assignment one part at a time and receive feedback at each point. After the first assignment, she gave us thorough feedback on what we could do to improve for the next phase of the assignment. This approach really helped us gain confidence and develop our skills. You know, really important for us to do. Now, unfortunately, when we give feedback, it doesn't mean that students understand it. So we have to also think about how do we give that feedback? And again, that's a whole nother presentation for another day, but I just wanted to, you know, acknowledge that we need to make sure our feedback is understood and heard by students. And this was an interesting study that said that they're more likely to understand it when it's an audio version versus a written version. So having a quick in-person or Zoom feedback session is probably best. If you can't, then maybe recorded. Just your affect too as you're giving the feedback, because you know, like, you know, emails and all and written words can be interpreted a variety of ways. And let's face it, folks, feedback is emotional, right? Like, it's emotional. I don't know about you. I have a whole bunch of books. I have a whole bunch of articles, but still when I submit something, I'm like, when I open it up, I'm like, did they like it or did they not like it? I don't know, you know, so I still feel that. And I should be at the pretty high end of confidence compared to students who are just developing these skills. So we need to be mindful that all of that really does matter. All right, so my older son came through for me and he did participate and give me one story. So you get to hear one of his stories. And this one was a good one because it's one that really matters to me, that opportunity for revision. So I'll go ahead and read to you what he wrote. In this course, one of my major assignments was a group project that included a presentation and a paper. About halfway through the semester, the paper portion of the project was due. The professor graded the papers by the following class, and when he returned the papers to each group, he explained how we would be spending the entire class reviewing our papers. The professor then spoke to the whole class, describing the requirements of this revision assignment. He told us that we would be receiving a separate grade for the second revised submission. Knowing that this assignment was going to be graded again, we immediately became more interested in the notes and the feedback that the professor had written on the returned papers. The professor then went to each group and spent about 5 to 10 minutes discussing the paper with the group members while the other groups were working on their presentation portion of the project. So what I love about this particular example is that it wasn't just like finger crossing, I hope you use this. No, you're going to use it because like I'm grading you and like, like here's the next written assignment that you're going to need to do that is connected to this feedback that you just got. So, you know, again, I challenge us to find ways to scaffold assignments. You know, for some of us, it might be no stakes in the beginning. Like maybe you have a lab report that's not graded the first one, and then they're graded, but not so much. And by the end of the semester, they're graded a little bit more because now they know how to do them. So not every, like if you have 10 lab reports, they don't all have to be 10% or something of your grade. You know, you can have a graduated kind of grading system that would more accurately reflect at the end of the semester whether or not the learning outcomes were achieved. You don't need to know, did they travel 5,000 miles to get there or only 10 miles, but did they get there, right? That's what you really want to know. And then, of course, you know, breaking down those assignments like, you know, was shared in our student example. Now, I know the reason why we don't do this is because, you know, as someone said earlier, how are we supposed to do 15 minutes? Well, how are we supposed to grade all those papers again, right? Like we don't have, I don't know about you, but grading is so exhausting. I really take a lot of energy. It like depletes me, you know, like, because I worry about how students are going to respond to the feedback. I try to be productive and constructive with it. And I probably, you know, give more than what they can take in at that moment. And I'm, you know, so I try to be mindful of that too. So I know that that's why, but we need to find creative ways. So linking the assignments, like, you know, my son's example at Quinnipiac, where they, you know, we had the paper and then our presentation was based on that. By doing things like that, you don't always have to grade the paper again. You could say, I'm giving you feedback on this paper. Now you're going to use that for this presentation type thing that you're doing. And you can do quick check-ins that really will just show me your outline. And I can tell you if the structure at least is on target or not. It doesn't take long for me to scan an outline and say yay or nay, sometimes 10 seconds, like, or less. And I know students off track and I've got to get them back on track. I don't want them going to spend 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours writing this paper when the structure was wrong. Like that's not a good use of their time. And of course, they're going to get frustrated if the feedback isn't positive. All right, last but not least, it's important for us to acknowledge that we also need to reinforce strengths. So our last student contributor for today is going to talk about this, and her name is Christina. Here she is.
fun stage of starting to think about post-grad life. You know, did I want to go to grad school, look for a job, things like that. For a while, I had been leaning towards grad school, but I really didn't have any confidence that I'd be able to get in or even do well if I did get in. But that spring semester in my social psychology class, I had a professor who was so passionate about what he taught, which is obviously extremely important in engaging students. But more than that, I think the most important point of teaching is motivating. And I'll never forget the kind of feedback he gave on my assignments. It was so positive and so encouraging, and pointed out that I had a natural strength for writing and critical thinking. He commented that my skills could be greatly suited for the field, which gave me so much confidence and motivation to keep improving. Obviously, I was not perfect, but reading those comments made me look at constructive criticism differently too. I thought, okay, he really put in the time to make these thoughtful comments. I am noticed as a student, he sees my potential, and now I really want to get better. So even the constructive criticism became so encouraging, and I really started to see a shift in myself as an academic from that point on. And now I'm in grad school studying social psychology, so it worked.
Love it. You know, and you know, so often we're focused on trying to improve students, right? We need to sometimes validate and stroke and point out strengths that they may not see for themselves. So that too is part of our role. And we sometimes forget the power of how a simple sentence can make a huge difference in their life. Like one of my current students is like, my husband was like jumping up and down based on this feedback that you gave me. Like, really? She's like, we hanging on the refrigerator. Because like she did, you know, obviously knocked an assignment out of the park. I'm like, oh my God, wow. She's like, thank you for taking the time for, you know, helping me, you know, acknowledge, because I didn't think, I was like so scared. I didn't think I did a good job on this. And then to hear that from you was so rewarding. So we need to be mindful of that and really
Isn't that
on the positives. I'm going to hold this last one to the end, because I think we can do that more conversationally. So I'm going to wrap up right now and just say thank you all for participating. I'm going to hang out, but we can go ahead and stop the recording if you'd like, so we can turn it into a more conversational dialogue. And if we want to do breakouts or something, we can. Otherwise, we can just have a large group conversation. I'm happy to do that. Again, this is my contact information, so don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything I can do to support you, or if you're interested in partnering in any way.